The moment her fingers slipped into his, I felt it. The air changed, thickened, like the calm before a thunderstorm that never announces itself, just barrels in and ruins your life. It was Thanksgiving, and my house was glowing with the scent of rosemary, roasted turkey, and lies. My name's Luke. I'm 38, married for 12 years, father of 2, and, until about an hour ago, I believed in happy endings. The dining room was full. The clink of silverware, the gentle hum of conversation, the occasional burst of laughter from my dad whenever my uncle told one of his back-in-my-day stories. I'd made the table myself. Oak, sanded and stained to a dark gloss, surrounded by chairs we'd collected over the years. Imperfect, just like us. We were hosting. My wife, Emily, was always insistent about hosting holidays. Said it made her feel like she was the centerpiece of our family. Her words, not mine. She had on her favorite cream-colored knit sweater and red lipstick, the one that smudged just slightly when she sipped her wine. She looked radiant, magnetic, like she belonged on the cover of some lifestyle magazine. But then my brother's hand slid beneath the ivory tablecloth, and she took it. I didn't see it immediately, not fully. It started with a glance. A lingering one, the kind lovers share when they think no one's watching. Except I was watching. Everyone else was lost in food and laughter, but I saw her bite the corner of her lip. That subtle tell of hers. The one I used to think was for me. At first, I told myself I was imagining things. I mean, this was Thanksgiving. My parents were here. My kids. My wife. My brother. My fucking brother. But when I shifted slightly in my seat and the tablecloth bunched just enough to reveal her hand resting gently over his, every remaining illusion evaporated. The turkey on my plate turned to ash. My wine tasted like vinegar. They didn't notice me noticing. Emily's eyes were downcast, like a demure schoolgirl. Ben, my younger brother by 2 years, always the charming one, kept up a steady conversation with my father about football stats, never missing a beat. It was almost masterful. And then, across the table, I locked eyes with Megan, his wife. The look on her face told me everything I needed to know. She'd seen it too. Her fork hung mid-air, forgotten, a smear of cranberry sauce clinging to the edge. Her eyes widened, then narrowed into thin, trembling lines of betrayal. We didn't speak, didn't move, just stared at each other, and in that shared silence, something passed between us. An understanding, a bond, maybe even a warning. I glanced around the table. The kids were talking about some YouTuber's latest prank video. My dad was cutting into the ham like it owed him money. My mom poured herself another glass of Pinot, oblivious as always. No one else saw it. Just Megan and me. Beneath the table, the movement stopped. Their hands separated. Emily shifted in her chair, suddenly aware of how long she'd been frozen in place. Ben leaned back with a casual stretch, grinning like he always does when he knows he's gotten away with something. The bastard even winked at the waitress when she came in to clear plates. I wanted to flip the table. I wanted to drag them both out into the backyard, scream until every bird in the neighborhood flew away, and then make them explain, in front of everyone, what the hell that was under the tablecloth. But I didn't. Instead, I lifted my wine glass. My hand was steady, even though my heart wasn't. To family, I said, my voice smooth, like butter over a knife. Everyone raised their glasses in response, oblivious to the storm that had already touched down. To family, they echoed. Only Megan hesitated. Her eyes still locked on Emily, face unreadable. But eventually, she joined the toast. Her voice, like mine, was even. I saw the tremble in her hands, though, just like mine. Emily clinked glasses with me, her smile wide, eyes warm. The performance was flawless. She leaned in and whispered something about dessert. Pumpkin pie and whipped cream. The homemade kind, like her mother used to make. I nodded and smiled back, but all I could think about was the warmth of her hand resting in my brother's. The kind of touch you don't share with family. After dinner, everyone migrated to the living room for football and pie. I stayed behind in the kitchen, piling dishes like they were bricks in a wall between me and what I knew. Megan helped without a word. We didn't look at each other, just worked in tandem like soldiers in a trench. I finally spoke. You saw it too, didn't you? She didn't answer right away, just wiped her hands on a dish towel and stared at the open dishwasher. Then she whispered, yes. One word. Cold. Final. The kind of word that doesn't need a follow-up. I swallowed hard. You think it's been going on a while? She turned to me then, finally meeting my eyes. I don't know, but that wasn't the first time I felt it. I nodded. The sound of laughter echoed from the other room. Emily's laugh. Soft, flirtatious, the same way she used to laugh when we were newlyweds. I closed the dishwasher with more force than necessary. Megan touched my arm. A light touch, barely there. I don't think we should say anything. Not yet, she said. My throat felt tight. Why? Because if we do, everything changes. She was right. But something inside me had already changed. Permanently. That night, as our guests said their goodbyes and Emily hugged Ben a little too long, I stayed silent. I shook his hand like nothing had happened, kissed my wife on the cheek, and told her the night had been perfect. But inside, I was already drawing battle lines. And Megan? Her eyes followed Ben all the way to the door. Not with love, with calculation. The night air wrapped around me like a cold accusation. Crisp, silent, biting. I stepped out onto the back patio after everyone had left, needing distance from her, Emily, and from the warmth of the lie we'd all just shared like a damn family heirloom. I didn't even bother to grab my coat. I needed the cold. I needed something real. The stars were out. Brilliant, indifferent. I stared up at them like they might offer answers, but they just stared back. I heard the door open behind me. Soft footsteps followed. I didn't have to turn around. I figured you'd be out here, Megan's voice said. Quiet, steady, but raw at the edges. She didn't wait for an invitation, just came and stood beside me. She had on a long beige sweater, arms wrapped around herself, her dark hair pulled back in a tight ponytail that didn't quite hide the tension in her jaw. For a moment, we stood in silence. No need for small talk. We both seen it. I don't even know how long I was staring at their hands. I finally said, maybe 10 seconds, maybe a lifetime. Megan nodded. I thought I was losing my mind at first. I looked at her. But you saw it. You definitely saw it, right? She turned to me, her eyes dark and serious. Yeah, Luke, I saw it. I let out a shaky breath. That confirmation, as painful as it was, felt like a relief. Like I wasn't crazy for what I'd seen, for what I felt brewing in my gut. How long do you think it's been going on? I asked. Megan hesitated, glancing toward the darkened backyard. That's the part that's killing me. Because I don't know. But I think it's been more than just tonight. The signs were there. The jokes that landed wrong. The accidental glances. The weird excuses. I swallowed, nodding slowly. Emily's been distant for a while now. I told myself it was stress. Kids. Life. You know the story. Megan gave a dry laugh. Ben's been a ghost lately. Not just physically. Mentally, emotionally. He's not here. He hasn't been for months. The wind moved through the trees, rustling leaves like whispers. The whole world felt like it was listening. They did it in front of us, I said. Right there. Holding hands under the table like teenagers. Like we wouldn't notice. Megan's voice lowered. Because they think we're blind. Or maybe they just don't care anymore. I turned to face her more directly. What are you going to do? She looked down, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know yet. Tonight, I just needed to get through dinner without throwing a plate across the room. I exhaled slow. Same. We fell into silence again, the weight of the truth pressing down on both of us. She stepped closer, not touching me, but close enough I could feel her body heat. I don't want to jump to conclusions, I said. But that wasn't innocent. That touch, there was something in it. Intimacy. Familiarity. Megan's lip trembled slightly before she bit it. Ben's not stupid. If he's doing this, he's all in. That's who he is. Charming. Calculated. When he cheats, it's not a mistake. It's deliberate. I shook my head, trying to fight the wave of emotion building in my chest. I trusted him. Hell, I trusted her. Megan looked at me, eyes softening. I did too. Something unspoken passed between us then. An understanding. The kind of thing you can't really name, only feel. Betrayal, when it lands this close, creates a bond between the wounded. You think they've actually had sex? I asked before I could stop myself. Megan looked away. I don't know. Maybe. Probably. The words hit harder than I expected. I clenched my jaw, gripping the edge of the patio railing to keep from breaking something. I feel like a damn fool, I muttered. You're not, Megan said quickly. You're not. They are. They're the fools for thinking they could hide it. For thinking we wouldn't feel the shift. I studied her for a long moment. Her voice had a steel edge. Hurt, yes, but also control. She wasn't falling apart. Neither was I. Not yet. What now? I asked her. I guess we watch, she said slowly. We don't accuse. We don't blow up. We watch. We listen. We gather the truth. And then we decide what kind of people we want to be. I turned back to the stars. I never wanted to be the guy who said nothing while his wife screwed around behind his back. You're not, Megan said. You're the guy who saw it and didn't flinch. That did something to me. Her voice, her presence, it steadied me, grounded me in a moment where I could have otherwise drowned. She stepped away, heading toward the sliding door. You should come in. It's cold. In a minute, I said. She paused. Luke, yeah. Her voice dropped low. Thank you for not pretending. And then she was gone. I stood alone under the weight of stars, colder than before, but not broken. Not yet. The next morning, the house felt hollow. It wasn't just quiet. It was vacant in a way sound couldn't fix. I walked down the stairs with the heaviness of someone dragging invisible chains. Emily had already left for her morning run. She didn't usually run on Sundays. Another new routine I hadn't questioned until now. The coffee maker gurgled in the corner, filling the silence with mechanical humming. I watched the black liquid swirl into the carafe, steam rising in slow spirals. The same way it did every morning. The same way it had when I still thought I had a wife I could trust. I poured a cup, sat at the kitchen island, and stared at the door. It opened exactly 34 minutes later. Emily walked in like nothing was broken. Ponytail damp from sweat, cheeks flushed from the cold. She wore the new leggings I bought her last Christmas, the ones she'd claimed were too tight, but had somehow grown to love recently. I remembered how they used to be for me. Now I wasn't sure. She leaned over the counter and kissed me lightly on the cheek. It landed like frost. Morning. I looked up at her, trying to see past the face I'd memorized for over a decade. Morning, I replied, my voice hollow. She opened the fridge, grabbed almond milk, and poured it into a protein shake she prepped from a little glass jar. Vanilla coconut. Her favorite. She took a sip, not noticing the way my eyes didn't leave her. Good run? I asked. Yeah. I went a little farther than usual. Took the park trail loop. The park trail. Convenient. Is that where she met him? I sipped my coffee. See anyone we know? She paused mid-sip. Barely noticeable, but I caught it. Then she shook her head casually. Just the usual dog walkers. I nodded slowly. She turned away, rinsing the shaker. I knew this dance. The little lies, the polished answers. I just hadn't realized I was in it. You know, I said, keeping my voice neutral, last night was nice. It was good to have everyone here. She smiled over her shoulder. Yeah, it really was. We should do it again soon. I leaned forward, elbows on the table. You and Ben seemed close. She froze for just half a second, then turned back to face me. What do you mean? You know, I said, shrugging, laughing, whispering, holding hands under the table. She blinked. What? I tilted my head. I saw it, Emily. Your hand. His hand. Under the table. Her face drained of color. She quickly set the shaker down. You must have misunderstood, she said, forcing a light laugh. It was nothing. Nothing. I asked softly now. She walked toward me, slow, guarded. We were talking about that dumb story from childhood. The sledding accident. You remember that, right? I said nothing. He reached for my hand. I didn't even think about it. It was just a reaction. I was laughing. I didn't mean anything by it. Did Megan laugh? I asked. She hesitated. I don't know. She saw it too. Emily crossed her arms, eyes narrowing now. You're blowing this out of proportion. Am I? She exhaled loudly, annoyed. I was tipsy. It was Thanksgiving. Everyone was being affectionate. You're reading into this. But you weren't drunk, I said. You were completely sober. I know how you are when you drink. Your voice gets louder. You ramble. You cry over pumpkin pie commercials. You didn't do any of that. You were in control. She looked away, jaw tight. I don't know what you want me to say. I want the truth. She looked at me like I was being unreasonable. It was a moment. It didn't mean anything. That's the second time you've said that. I muttered. She crossed the room and leaned on the kitchen counter, putting distance between us. You're being paranoid. Am I? There was silence. She didn't answer. She didn't apologize. She didn't ask how I felt. I've been watching you pull away from me for months, I said quietly. I just didn't realize where you were going. Her shoulders tensed. Luke, we've been going through a rough patch. Every marriage does. But this? She gestured between us. Accusing me of something with my own brother-in-law? That's disgusting. I flinched, more at her tone than the words. I didn't accuse, I said. I asked. Same difference. No, I replied. Not when you love someone. When you love someone, and they do something that twists a knife in your gut, you have every right to ask why. We stood there, the room thick with things we couldn't say, things we were too afraid to admit. Eventually, she broke the silence. I'm going to take a shower. I watched her go. She didn't touch me, didn't defend Ben, didn't say she loved me, just walked away like she was done being questioned. The door to the bathroom clicked shut, and the house, once again, felt empty. It was Tuesday when Megan texted. Coffee, or something stronger. I stared at the screen for a while, thumb hovering, my mind replaying the non-conversation Emily and I had shared 2 nights earlier. She hadn't brought it up since. No apology, no denial. Just avoidance. Polished, practiced deflection. Like it had never happened. I responded. Wine. She answered within seconds. Red. I'll open the bottle. Her house was a 15-minute drive, but I took the long way, looping past the park, past Ben and Megan's church, past the diner where we used to have double dates. Funny how you start seeing landmarks as landmines after betrayal. Her porch light was already on when I pulled into the driveway. The kids were gone. At a sleepover with cousins, she'd said. I stepped out, bottle of Cabernet in hand, and rang the doorbell. When she opened the door, it hit me. Not just her face, though she looked tired in a way makeup couldn't fix, but the silence behind her. The stillness of a house missing laughter. She was wearing a long navy cardigan over a tank top and jeans, barefoot, hair down. Her eyes met mine and held. Neither of us smiled. You came, she said quietly. You asked, I said. She stepped aside and let me in. The living room smelled faintly of vanilla candles and something warm, cinnamon, maybe. A fire crackled in the corner, more for atmosphere than heat. She had 2 glasses on the coffee table, a half-full bottle already breathing beside them. I didn't wait, she said, sliding onto the couch. Good, I said, sitting across from her. I wouldn't have either. She poured me a glass and handed it over. We drank in silence for the first few minutes, the red wine filling our stomachs with something that resembled comfort. Outside, the wind picked up, tapping branches against the window like nature itself was eavesdropping. So, she said finally, how's the lying going? I let out a bitter laugh. Smooth as ever. She talks about dinner plans. Laundry. Sends me memes. Like she didn't squeeze my brother's hand under the damn table. Megan tilted her glass. Ben's pretending nothing happened too. Came home Sunday night like it was just another night. Told me I looked beautiful. Beautiful. She took another sip, slower this time. I keep asking myself, she continued, is this new? Is this the start of something awful? Or is this just the first time I've caught it? I looked at her. You really don't know? No, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. But I have suspicions. Little things. Phone face down. More showers. More cologne. Fewer conversations. I nodded. Emily's been working late again. But there's no work. She stopped inviting me to her yoga class. She started going for runs. Megan met my eyes again. What do we do with that? I shrugged. Drink wine. Talk about it with the only other person who gets it. We drank. The fire crackled. Eventually, Megan leaned back against the couch cushions and let out a long sigh. You know what hurts the most? I waited. It's not the hand-holding. It's not even the possibility of sex. It's the quiet way they made us feel small. Disposable. Like we wouldn't notice. Like we didn't matter enough to cover it up. That landed in my chest like a brick. I nodded slowly. I keep thinking about that moment under the table. I keep wondering if they forgot we were there, or if they knew exactly what they were doing. Silence. Then Megan said, do you think they've slept together? The question floated there, heavy, like a balloon filled with lead. I considered lying. I think they have, I said finally. She swallowed hard, but didn't cry. I don't want to be weak about this, she said. I don't want to be the wife who just forgives and moves on because it's easier than tearing things down. I looked at her. Then don't. She exhaled. You know what I miss the most? I shook my head. I miss being touched with intention. Not obligation. Not distraction. Just intention. That got to me in a way I wasn't ready for. My throat tightened. I miss that too, I said. The fire dimmed a little, casting soft shadows on the walls. Our glasses were nearly empty. She looked up at me again, but this time, Something shifted in her eyes. Not sadness, not anger, recognition. We're both broken, I said, setting down my glass. Yeah, she replied. But at least we're not lying about it. We didn't hug. We didn't cry. We just sat there, two people holding the truth between them like it might burn. It was Thursday when I saw her again. I hadn't planned to. Megan and I hadn't spoken since that night. No texts, no calls, not even a meme or a courtesy check-in. I told myself it was better that way. That wine and wounded hearts were a bad combination. But the memory of her voice, her scent, the faint cinnamon warmth of her house, it stayed with me like a shadow. I'd gone to the hardware store to distract myself. Nothing special, just a few things for the shed I didn't care about. I was staring blankly at a row of drill bits when I heard her voice behind me. Didn't peg you for a Thursday afternoon aisle 5 kind of guy. I turned and there she was. No makeup, hair tied back, jeans, and an old sweatshirt with her alma mater's faded logo across the front. Her face was soft, but her eyes, those eyes, carried the same weight I'd seen in my own reflection every morning since Thanksgiving. Megan. She smiled gently. Luke. We stood there, surrounded by screws and socket sets and fluorescent lighting that made her skin look almost porcelain. What are you doing here? I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. Same as you, she said, holding up a paintbrush. Pretending my world isn't falling apart one errand at a time. I nodded. Normal's easier in public. Yeah, she said. You lie to the cashier, and for 5 minutes, you're just another customer. We wandered the aisles together after that. Not quite shopping, not quite talking. Just moving through space like two people unsure of whether to stay in their lanes or crash into each other. When we reached the checkout, she paused, hesitant. You want to grab a coffee or something? I didn't answer right away, but I nodded. She didn't take me to a cafe. Instead, we ended up in her car in the parking lot of an old park near the edge of town. The kind with creaky swings and peeling paint on the picnic tables. We sat there, 2 takeout coffees between us, the heater humming low, windows fogging slightly from the inside out. Ben hasn't touched me in 3 weeks, she said, staring out the windshield. I didn't say anything. He still talks like nothing's wrong. Still asks if I want dinner, or if we should book a cabin for Christmas. Like we didn't both see what we saw. I looked down at the lid of my coffee cup, fingers tightening around the heat. Emily tried to kiss me last night. Not a real kiss. Just one of those, safe ones. Habit. Megan turned to face me. Did you let her? I moved away. Said I had a headache. She gave a bitter little laugh. Funny how they build these routines with us, then reach for them like lifeboats when the water gets rough. We sat in silence for a while, the quiet between us thick with things we weren't saying. I've been thinking, I said, about that night. At your house. Her voice dropped. Yeah. There was something in the air. Not just the wine. She turned to me again, eyes searching. You felt it too? I met her gaze. Yeah. She set her coffee down in the cup holder. Then she reached across the console, hesitating for just a breath, and placed her hand gently over mine. It was soft, steady, and not innocent. I didn't pull away. Neither did she. Her thumb brushed against mine, just once, but it sent something sharp through me. Not lust, at least not entirely, but something more dangerous. Recognition. That unbearable feeling of being seen when you've spent weeks pretending everything's fine. You know this is wrong, I whispered. I do, she said. But it doesn't feel wrong. No, she said. It doesn't. Her hand lingered, warm against mine. Not trembling, not shy. I could feel her pulse in her wrist. I wondered if she could feel mine in my fingers. We stayed like that for a full minute. No words. No breath wasted on what-ifs. It was just a touch, but it cracked open something inside me. Something I'd kept buried beneath years of compromise and quiet resentment. She looked down at our joined hands. I should go, she whispered. I nodded, but neither of us moved. When she finally pulled away, her fingers grazed mine like they didn't want to let go. I watched her start the car. Her face was turned toward the windshield, but I could see the flush rising in her neck. She looked at me one last time, then gave the faintest nod, like a question answered before it could be asked. I got out and closed the door gently. Her car pulled away, and I stood in the parking lot, heart pounding, hands still tingling from the contact. It was just a touch, but nothing would be the same after it. There's a moment, just before you do something irreversible, when time slows down. When the body moves on instinct, but the mind screams in the background, warning, pleading, bargaining. And you ignore it anyway. That's how it felt the first time Megan and I crossed the line. It started with a drive. A cold, gray Tuesday. I told Emily I had a work thing across town. Some supplier meeting that didn't exist. Megan said she had errands. Also a lie. We met in the parking lot behind an old bookstore just outside the city limits. No cameras. No questions. Just a discreet spot far from judgmental eyes. She pulled up next to me and didn't say anything. Just opened her passenger door and slid into my seat. Her breath fogged the window. The space between us was electric. We didn't speak for the first 5 minutes. I glanced over at her, jeans, black sweater, hair down. She smelled like jasmine and rain. Her hands were folded in her lap, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. "This is crazy," I finally said, voice low. "I know. We haven't even talked about it." "I know," she whispered again. But then she looked at me, really looked at me, and all the unsaid things from the last few weeks rushed in like a flood. The glances, the texts, the wine, that lingering touch in her car. "I don't want to be anyone's revenge," I said quietly. She leaned closer. "You're not. I don't want to just be comfort. You're not that either." She reached up and brushed my jaw with her fingers. My heart stuttered. "You're the only thing that feels real right now, Luke," she said. That broke me. I leaned in, and we kissed. Not gentle, not aggressive, just honest. I don't remember how long we stayed like that. Mouth searching, hands tentative at first, then desperate. There was no awkwardness, no guilt. It didn't feel like cheating. It felt like being found. Eventually, we stopped, breathing hard, her forehead resting against mine. "This doesn't make us better than them," I whispered. "No," she agreed. "But maybe it makes us human." That night, I drove us to a little hotel on Route 9. One of those highway places with clean sheets and no questions. We didn't even check in together. Separate cars. Separate names. It felt safer that way. Necessary. The room was small. Beige walls. Thin drapes. But inside it, something caught fire. We didn't undress quickly. We weren't frantic. We took our time, eyes locked, movements slow, deliberate. I could feel her hesitation, the part of her that still asked, "Are you sure?" But she never spoke it. And I answered with my hands. I kissed her shoulder as she shivered under my touch. Her skin was soft, warm, familiar in a way that terrified me. I unbuttoned her jeans, inch by inch, and she let out a sound, half sigh, half surrender. She undressed me like she needed to know every part of what she was about to take. Not greedily, not out of lust, but reverently. And when we finally came together, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't acrobatic, but it was real. There was tension, hunger, but also a stillness between the motions, an emotional gravity that felt heavier than the act itself. She held my face as I moved above her, her fingers threading into my hair. "This isn't a mistake," she whispered. And for a moment, I believed her. Afterward, we lay there, tangled in sheets and silence, hearts thudding in rhythm. Her head was on my chest, one leg draped over mine. My fingers traced lazy patterns across her back. No one spoke. We didn't need to. But eventually, reality started creeping in through the seams. Checkout times, home routines, the names of people who thought we were still loyal spouses. Megan sat up first. Her hair was tousled, her lips swollen. She looked more alive than I'd ever seen her. "I don't want to sneak around," she said. I sat up beside her. "You think we tell them?" She shook her head. "Not yet. I don't mean that. I just mean, let's not pretend this is just sex." I studied her face. "It's not." She leaned in and kissed me again, slow and firm. Then she got up and started dressing. I watched her button her shirt, zip her jeans. It felt like a ceremony, not a goodbye. We left separately. No kisses in the parking lot. No promises. Just a quiet understanding. We kept seeing each other after that. Once a week, sometimes twice. Hotel rooms, out-of-town coffee shops, long drives with no destination. We learned each other's rhythms. She liked to hum softly after she came. I liked to trace her collarbone with my thumb. It wasn't just about the sex, though the sex was unlike anything I'd known. It was the knowing, the conversations in the dark, the shared grief, the way she could finish my sentences now. We weren't just cheating anymore. We were becoming something new, and it scared the hell out of me. It started small. Emily began checking my phone again. Not obviously, just those little glances when she thought I wasn't paying attention. Her eyes flicked down toward the screen when I got a text. Once, I caught her pick it up while I was in the shower. She said she thought it was hers. It wasn't. Who's Megan been talking to lately? She asked one evening, stirring a pot of pasta sauce like she hadn't just lobbed a grenade. I looked up from the cutting board. I don't know. Ben, I guess. Emily's smile was tight. She seems distant lately. I shrugged. Maybe you should ask your brother. That earned me a cold look, but she said nothing more. We ate dinner in silence. I watched her chew slowly, like she was trying to taste lies instead of food. The irony was unbearable. Her paranoia was thickening, creeping in like mold between the tiles of our marriage. And the more she suspected, the more cautious I had to become. Megan and I had stopped meeting at hotels. It was too risky, too easy for someone to follow a car or check a credit card statement. We got smarter. Daytime meetups at trailheads, gas stations outside town, once even in the back of my truck parked under an overpass. We never called it an affair out loud. We didn't need to. The words would have cheapened what we were building. What we were felt more like a secret sanctuary, a place we crawled into to escape the ruins of our marriages. But like all sanctuaries, ours was starting to develop cracks. Ben was changing too. Megan told me how he'd started coming home earlier, asking questions he never used to care about. Who she was texting, why she wasn't in bed by 10. He'd even suggested they go away for the weekend. Just the two of us, like old times, he'd said. It was a trap. They both knew it. I think he knows, she told me one night in her driveway, her voice barely audible over the rain tapping the windshield. He suspects, I said. But he doesn't know. She shook her head. You don't know Ben like I do. He's not the type to explode. He gathers, stores, waits. That worried me, because Emily was the same way. One morning, I found her at the kitchen table, flipping through an old photo album. I hadn't seen it in years, back when our kids were toddlers, back when smiles came easy. She looked up at me with that same brittle, practiced expression I'd grown to despise. Do you ever think about what we used to have? She asked. Sure, I said carefully. Do you miss it? I sat down across from her, heart thudding. Yeah, I do. She looked at me long and hard, then nodded and closed the album. It felt like a test, and I didn't know if I passed. That same afternoon, she texted me during work. Dinner at home tonight. Just us. I stared at it for a long time. There was no smiley face, no exclamation mark, just a period, like a threat. Megan's text came in 10 minutes later. Ben just told me he wants to check my location settings. You turned them off? Already did. Told him my battery keeps dying. He buying it. Not for long. Everything was tightening, the walls closing in. Our partners were circling us like sharks, sensing blood in the water. Except we were the ones who started bleeding first. That night at dinner, Emily wore perfume. She hadn't worn perfume in months. Her dress was low-cut, black, something I hadn't seen in years. She poured wine, lit candles, played soft music in the background like we were starring in some delusional play. She reached across the table halfway through the meal and touched my hand. I want to try, she said. Try what? To fix us. I swallowed hard. Emily, I know I haven't been present, she continued. And I know something's been wrong for a long time. But I don't want to lose you, Luke. My stomach turned. Not from guilt, but from timing. It was too late. We both knew it. This sudden attempt to rewind, to repaint over brokenness with wine and candlelight, it was cosmetic. Desperate. But still, I nodded. I squeezed her hand. I smiled, because I didn't know what else to do. Afterward, she kissed me. I let her. But it felt like betrayal, not of her, but of Megan. Later that night, I lay in bed next to my wife, staring at the ceiling while her breathing evened out beside me. My phone buzzed once under the pillow. A message from Megan. Can't sleep. Feels like he's watching me breathe. Same, I wrote back. Then, what are we doing, Luke? I stared at that one for a long time. I could hear Emily shift beside me, mumbling something in her sleep. I typed, we're surviving. No reply, but I didn't need one. We were too comfortable. That's the truth of it. We'd grown careless, lulled by weeks of near misses and quiet lies. When you get away with something long enough, it stops feeling risky. It starts feeling routine. Until it doesn't. It was a Wednesday afternoon when it almost came crashing down. Megan had the day off. I told Emily I was running an all-day client meeting in the city. Megan texted me just after lunch. I booked the room. Same place. 3 p.m. By 2:45, I was knocking at the door of room 207, second floor, tucked in the corner, far from prying eyes. She opened it already barefoot, a soft, oversized sweater hanging from one shoulder, her hair still damp from a shower. "You beat me here," I said with a grin. "Traffic was light," she said, stepping back to let me in. The moment the door clicked shut behind me, her hands were on my chest. We barely made it to the bed. Kissing turned to laughter, laughter turned to silence, and then the room was filled with the soft rhythm of two people trying to forget the outside world. After, we lay there tangled in sheets and half-whispers. "You ever wonder what would have happened if we'd met before them?" she asked, her head resting on my shoulder. "All the time. I think about that version of us. The one that never had to sneak around. The one that never needed secrets." I stroked her hair. "Maybe that version wouldn't have needed us as badly as we do now." She smiled, but there was something sad behind it. We stayed like that for another hour. Then she got up to shower again. Habit now, and I dozed off, the scent of her skin still on mine. I woke to the sound of her voice, low and panicked. "Luke, Luke, get up." I sat up fast, still foggy. "What?" "Ben's here." The words hit like a slap. "What?" She was at the window, peeking between the blinds. Her face was pale. "He just pulled into the lot. That's his truck. I'd know it anywhere." Adrenaline hit me like a flood. I jumped out of bed, heart racing. "Why would he be here?" "I don't know," she hissed. "He said he was working today. He never comes out this way." I scrambled to grab my clothes. My shirt was inside out, my belt half looped. I was one sock short. Megan tossed it to me from under the bed. "What do we do?" she asked. I ran to the bathroom and looked in the mirror. My hair was a mess, eyes glassy, lips still swollen from kissing. No way I could pass for a guy who just dropped in to use the phone. "Is he coming inside?" She peeked again. "He's just sitting in the truck, watching." We both froze. It felt like a lifetime before she spoke again. Okay, we can spin this." "Spin what?" She turned to me, breath shaky but voice sharp. "If he comes up, we say I was here first. You're just checking in for a meeting. Separate rooms. Total coincidence." "He'll never believe that." She stepped closer, gripped my shoulders. "We don't give him time to think. We control the story." I nodded, trying to steady my breathing. "I'll go down. Now. Pretend I didn't even know you were here." She kissed me, quick and hard. "Be careful." I grabbed my bag, made sure my phone was tucked away, and slipped out into the hall. My legs felt like rubber. Every step echoed too loud. The hallway stretched like a bad dream. When I reached the stairs, I peeked through the little window. Ben's truck was still there, parked 2 rows back, engine idling. I forced myself to walk slow. Calm. Just a guy checking in for business. I passed the front desk, gave the clerk a nod. She didn't even look up. As I stepped outside, the cold air slapped me fully awake. I turned the corner toward my car, and then I heard a voice. "Luke." I turned slowly. Ben was standing outside his truck, arms folded, eyebrows raised. "Hey, man," I said, forcing a smile. "Didn't expect to see you here." He didn't smile back. "Yeah, funny running into you." I nodded toward the motel. Clients having plumbing work done. He wanted to meet off-site. Neutral ground. Ben looked toward the building. "You staying the night?" "No, just a short meeting. Heading out now." He stared at me for a long time. Then, "You seen Megan?" The question sliced through the air. I kept my face neutral. "Megan?" "No." "Why?" "She said she had errands out here. Just thought it was a coincidence." I shrugged. Small town. He studied me a moment longer. Then he nodded. "Guess so." I forced a laugh. "Anyway, I've got to run. Let me know if you and Em want to do dinner next week." He didn't answer. Just got back in his truck. I climbed into mine and drove off, hands shaking on the wheel. My phone buzzed with a text the moment I pulled out of the lot. "Did he leave?" "Yeah, but he asked about you." "Shit. He knows something." "Yeah, I felt it." That night, I barely slept. Every creak in the floorboards sounded like accusation. Every glance from Emily felt like a test. We hadn't been caught. Not yet. But the flame we lit had started catching everything else on fire. I filed the papers on a Monday. There was no grand outburst. No shouting match. Just a cold click of a pen and a numb silence as the clerk handed me the receipt. The courthouse smelled like dust and disappointment. The kind of place where promises came to die quietly. On the drive home, my hands didn't shake. The truth is, I was past shaking. I'd spent weeks marinating in the slow rot of suspicion and guilt, navigating a life that had become one long, drawn-out performance. But something shifted after the motel scare. Something final. The lie had gotten too heavy to carry. When I walked through the front door, Emily was on the couch, laptop open, legs tucked under her, looking exactly like the woman I used to race home to. She looked up. "Hey, you're home early." I dropped the envelope on the coffee table. She stared at it. "What's this?" I sat down in the chair across from her. "Divorce papers." Silence. She blinked, stunned. "You're kidding." "No." She sat up straighter. "This is sudden." "No," I said, my voice low. "It's not." She stared at the envelope like it had teeth. "You're seriously doing this?" I should have done it a long time ago. Her jaw tensed. Because of one moment under a damn table? I laughed, bitter. It was never just that. You know it. She folded her arms. "So you're not even going to try? 12 years, and you're walking away without a fight?" "I've been fighting, Emily. You just stopped showing up to the ring." Her eyes glistened, but I didn't see remorse. I saw frustration. Ego. Like she was angry she hadn't seen it coming. "You're throwing this away," she snapped. "No," I said. "You did. I'm just done pretending it can be salvaged." She stood, paced, gripping her hair like it could somehow hold everything together. "Is there someone else?" she asked. I didn't answer. "You've been different lately," she said. Quiet. Distant. "Look in the mirror." That shut her up. For a minute. "I never slept with him," she said suddenly. "Your brother. I swear." I stood up. "I don't care anymore." That stunned her more than anything else. Because it was true. I didn't care. The betrayal wasn't just physical. It was emotional, intentional, and long before hands met under that tablecloth, the loyalty had already died. "I'll stay in the guest room until things are sorted," I said. "I'm not here to hurt the kids." She nodded slowly, eyes vacant. "They'll hate you. They'll understand. Someday." I walked away before she could say anything else. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. Megan called me the next afternoon. Her voice sounded different, lighter, but tinged with disbelief. "He knows," she said. "Ben." She sighed. "He found the hotel receipt. The one from the last time." I closed my eyes. "What did he say?" He didn't scream. Didn't cry. Just stared at me and asked, "How long?" "What did you tell him?" "The truth." I leaned against the wall in the garage, heart racing. "Are you okay?" "Not really," she said. "But I'm not hiding anymore." She paused. "He packed a bag. Left this morning." "Where'd he go?" "His sister's. I think." "I don't care." I exhaled. I filed. There was silence on the other end. "You did?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Yesterday." Jesus. I couldn't do it anymore. "I didn't think you would." "I didn't either. Until I did." I heard her breathing. Then, "I'm proud of you." Those 4 words wrecked me more than anything Emily had said. "I want to see you," I said. "Tonight." Tonight. We met at her house this time. No motel. No disguises. Just her, in jeans and a worn sweatshirt, hair damp from a shower. The fire was already lit. The wine was already open. When I stepped inside, she didn't hesitate. She kissed me at the door, slow and warm, the kind of kiss that didn't ask for permission anymore. We sat on the couch, side by side, legs touching. "What happens now?" I asked. She shrugged, then smiled. "We start over. From the ashes." I nodded. And for the first time in months, I let myself believe in something again. Thanksgiving came again, like it always does, like time doesn't care what you've lost. The house wasn't mine anymore. Technically, it still was, but emotionally? No. Emily lived in it like she owned it, and I let her. We hadn't told the kids yet, not officially. We agreed to wait until after the holidays. A mutual lie, one last performance for the sake of appearances. The dinner was at our parents' this time. Neutral ground. Fewer memories embedded in the walls. Megan would be there. Ben, too. I wasn't sure what to expect. Part of me thought he wouldn't show. Part of me feared he would. I wore a navy sweater Megan had once complimented, back when we were still meeting in parking lots and hotel rooms. She wore a forest green dress that made her eyes look impossibly deep. We didn't ride together, separate cars, separate stories. But we had agreed on one thing. No more hiding. When I arrived, Emily was already inside, helping our mother set the table. She gave me a thin smile as I walked in. It didn't reach her eyes. I gave one back. I owed her that much. Ben showed up 15 minutes later. Alone. His jaw was tight, eyes unreadable. He nodded at me, but it wasn't a greeting. It was a warning. He didn't look at Megan. We all danced through small talk like tightrope walkers, avoiding anything sharp, anything real. The turkey was dry. The potatoes were cold. But nobody complained. Complaining would have broken the spell. Megan sat across from me, directly across. Our feet didn't touch. Our hands didn't reach. But our eyes? They said everything. The room was full. Siblings, spouses, a couple of distant cousins who always drank too much wine. But all I could see was her. She looked calm, composed. But I knew better. I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her fingers toyed with her napkin. Dinner began the usual way. Grace. A few forced laughs. Stories about childhood injuries and bad Halloween costumes. Everyone was pretending they hadn't noticed how the family had fractured. And then it happened. I don't know what pushed me. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was the way Ben kept glancing between Megan and me like he was waiting for proof. Or maybe I was just tired. Tired of hiding. Tired of guilt. Tired of acting like love needed permission. I reached under the table, and I took her hand. She didn't flinch. She didn't pull away. Her fingers curled around mine, soft but sure. Across from us, Ben froze, fork halfway to his mouth. His face didn't twist into rage, it just stopped, like someone had cut the power behind his eyes. Emily saw it too. Her gaze flicked to our hands, then to my face, then back to Megan's. The whole table fell quiet. Conversation died mid-sentence. You could have heard the tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway. "What the hell is this?" Ben finally said. His voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The silence made it echo like a gunshot. I didn't let go of Megan's hand. I looked straight at him. "It's the truth." Emily stood slowly, napkin crumpled in her fist. "You've got to be kidding me." Megan's voice was calm, almost too calm. "We're not hiding anymore." Ben stood now too, his chair screeching back. "So this is real? It wasn't just sex?" Megan met his eyes, and for a moment, I saw the pain in hers. But she didn't look away. "No," she said. "It wasn't just sex." Emily looked at me like she didn't recognize me. "You left me for her?" I took a breath. "I left you because you stopped being mine a long time ago." That landed like a punch. She staggered back a step, then turned, storming out of the room. The door slammed a moment later. Ben was still standing, still staring. He didn't yell, didn't cry, just shook his head and whispered, "You were my brother." "I still am," I said quietly. "But you stopped acting like one the night you reached under that table." He turned to Megan. "You know this doesn't end well." She held his gaze. "It already ended. This is something new." He walked out after that. No dramatic exit. No threats. Just a quiet, cold retreat. The rest of the family sat frozen, unsure of what to say. Eventually, Mom cleared her throat. "Well, I guess that's out in the open now." I stood. So did Megan. I looked at the table, at the uneaten food, the full wine glasses, the napkins still folded beside untouched plates. Then I looked at her, and I smiled. Because for the first time in over a year, I wasn't pretending anymore. 3 months later, the world looked different. Not new exactly, but cleaner. The way air smells after a storm, when the worst has passed and the ground is still soaked, but the sky starts to break open. Megan and I didn't jump into anything immediately. After the Thanksgiving dinner that exploded like a grenade in the center of our lives, we gave each other space. Not out of hesitation, but out of respect. We'd destroyed enough by rushing before, rushing to cover our wounds with affection, with sex, with escape. This time, we needed to be sure it wasn't just the wreckage we were clinging to. So we dated. Like teenagers, almost. Quiet nights out in neighboring towns. Long walks in parks neither of us had ever visited. One weekend, we drove 3 hours to a lakeside cabin and did absolutely nothing but talk and breathe and sleep next to each other in peace. We didn't talk about Emily and Ben much anymore. Not because we were avoiding it, but because they'd already taken enough space from us. We had no room left for ghosts. The divorce finalized quickly. Mutual signatures, no custody battle, no courtroom drama. Just paperwork and silence. The house went to Emily. I moved into a modest 2-bedroom on the edge of town. Cozy, clean. Mine. Ben moved in with his sister temporarily. Megan kept the house. Their kids adjusted faster than expected. Kids are like that. They feel the quake, then get back to building forts out of couch cushions. One Sunday morning, Megan came over with bagels and coffee. She wore leggings, a hoodie I hadn't seen before, no makeup. Her hair was tied up messily. She looked radiant. We sat on the floor in my living room, eating off paper plates like two college students who never learned how to grow up. I watched her smile as she told me about some dumb reality show she'd started binging, and I couldn't stop staring. "What?" she asked, mouth full of cream cheese. I shook my head. "You?" She raised an eyebrow. "Me what? You make me feel like I'm allowed to start over." She set her plate down, crawled into my lap, wrapped her arms around my neck, and kissed me, slow and deep. "You are," she whispered. Later that week, I asked if she'd want to make things official. She blinked, startled. "A label? Maybe just a beginning." We weren't ready to move in together, not yet. But we were ready to stop pretending this was anything but real. The healing wasn't done, but the foundation was strong. I started telling people about us. So did she. Some friends drifted away. Others leaned in closer. The ones who mattered didn't ask for timelines. They just smiled and said, "It makes sense." We started hosting dinners at my place. Small, casual. Megan made amazing chili. I handled the playlist. We invited her sister, my cousin, a couple neighbors. Normal things. Good things. No scandal. Just warmth. There were still hard moments. The first time I saw Emily at a grocery store, her eyes were cold. She didn't speak, just looked past me like I was a stranger. And maybe I was. Maybe the man she remembered had died the day she chose my brother's hand over mine. Ben never spoke to me again. That hurt, in a way I didn't expect. Not because I wanted forgiveness, but because once, a long time ago, he was my best friend. I grieved him like a death, but I didn't grieve what I lost with Emily. Because whatever that was had stopped being love long before Megan and I ever touched. One night, we sat on my porch, sharing a blanket, watching the stars blink through the clouds. "Do you ever regret it?" Megan asked, her voice soft. "The affair?" She nodded. I thought about it. Not just the physical parts, not the hotel rooms or secret glances, but the moment it all changed. The hand I reached for under the table. The hand that reached back. "No," I said. "Not once." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "I wish we'd met first," she said. "Me too. But maybe we wouldn't have seen each other," she added. "Not really." I kissed the top of her head. "Then I'm glad we had to fight for it." That night, we made love slowly. Not because we needed to, not because we were desperate to feel something, but because we finally could, free of guilt, of hiding, of shame. It wasn't about proving anything anymore. It was about being whole. We lay in bed after, fingers interlaced, and for the first time in a very long time, I believed in peace. Epilogue. If you're reading this because you're in the thick of it, if you've just discovered a betrayal, or you're knee-deep in the quiet disintegration of your marriage, let me tell you something. It won't destroy you. It'll hurt. God, will it hurt. It'll hollow you out and make you question every moment you ever called real. But eventually, it gets quieter. And one day, when you're not looking for it, someone might walk into your life who sees you, not as broken, not as damaged, but as someone worth knowing fully, someone worth beginning with. Don't run from that, even if it comes from the ashes.